Boom! Welcome into Sports Bit. Benny and Insight today, Thursday, August 25th. Pauly and Teddy, big game breakdown. Two football games to talk about, and they're both on television. And huge game between the Indians and the Rangers. They start a big four-game series. We'll get to that as well. And NFL news and notes in the deep dive and the play of the day. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books, bad for bettors. How about bad for the books? As always, Cubs and Cubs on the run line. They sweep the Padres. They win again. The Cubs are 19-4 in their last 23 games. In 3 of the losses, they led in the 8th inning, and the bullpen blew it.
and look at the numbers on the run line.
Oh.
8-2, minus 1.5 over the last 10. 14-5 over the last 19. So not only are the Cubs cashing tickets, they're cashing run line tickets and doing it on a day-in, day-out basis. Now, you look at the full season numbers for Chicago, and remember how the Cubs were just an inordinately profitable team over most of the first half of the campaign. But that one miserable stretch, the last month before the All-Star break, where they lost a ton of money as minus $2 and minus $2.50 and minus $3 favorites. Even with this hot streak, the Cubs are only marginally profitable for the course of the entirety of the season right now. Number 1 team in baseball, Texas. Number 2, Baltimore. And nobody's really that close to those two at the top of the MLB profitability standings.
Wow, yeah, bad for the books again. The Rangers, heavy steam, bet as high as $2.20, up from $1.65, and Darvish hits a home run.
Yeah, Darvish went yard, man. The guy was 0 for 12 in his career hitting prior to that at-bat. Only the second homer for a Texas pitcher in franchise history. Did you see the quote? And it wasn't a cheap home run either.
No.
He hit a dead red center field. Adrian Beltre, quote, "The way he did it, his whole at-bat looked good. That wasn't a cheap home run. He hit it straight to center field." So obviously Darvish did something right in that ballgame. Bannister, the manager, that's a big boy home run to center field. That ball was struck well. It's the 5th different pitcher, by the way, to homer against the Reds this season. But then the Rangers bullpen blew a 3-run lead. And then Adrian Beltre got it back. Another clutch late inning extra base hit. Texas now 28-8 in one-run games, by far the best record in the majors.
Bad for books and a tough beat for Red Sox backers. A 25-cent move on the Rays. They win as a dog in extra innings. I don't understand how this is so hard for Farrell to figure out. He continues to blow this in the late game with managing the bullpen and keeping guys out there. It's Ziegler in the 8th and Kimbrel in the 9th. It's not that hard. Porcello had over 120 pitches in the 8th inning, and Longoria took them deep to tie it, and then they lose in 11.
Yeah, and the way they lose in 11, it was a bad result for the house, certainly, with Tampa taking a bunch of wise guy money. But it was a brutal beat if you were a Boston backer in that ballgame. Look, they're in extra innings. It's not like it's a hopeless game. You got 2 outs, nobody on, with Hembree in the 11th. You get a double. Okay, it happens. A walk. Okay. And then a game-losing error when Hembree dropped the throw at first base on Kiermaier's grounder. Would have gotten out of the inning, would have gone on to the 12th. Instead, an E1. And the Red Sox take defeat from the jaws of victory.
Horrible loss there. Can't lose games like that in late August. Bad for the bettors. Our play of the day lost. But a 60-cent move. We thought it was too high with Fernandez. We had the Royals. They get shut out, but they had plenty of opportunities in this one, Teddy.
Oh, they sure did. And we certainly weren't the only ones that thought the price was a little bit too high on Kansas City. As you mentioned, that game was as high as Miami minus 260, and it closed as low as the Marlins minus 195. Let's give Jose Fernandez a credit. We said that he looked like he was tiring. He got in trouble a couple times this game, but boy, he worked out of a couple jams. And then Fernando Rodney got out of a big one in the 9th. Sick play by the shortstop to save Rodney and prevent that late rally for Kansas City. That was good for the house, bad for bettors.
What's going on with DeGrom? He got rocked again.
Yeah, his last 2 starts, he's given up 25 hits, 13 earned runs in just 9.2 innings of work. And remember, the Mets took money against the Cards last night. They were plus 105 at the open. Bet to pick them, minus 110 in a couple of spots. But DeGrom has absolutely been throwing what he says. They're just going down the middle of the plate right now. Here's the tweet from Adam Rubin from ESPN. Quote, DeGrom said he's at a loss for why his pitches are too frequently going down the middle and hittable. He insisted he does not have fatigue and would not benefit from getting skipped in the rotation. That being said, DeGrom, I believe 5 times in his career, he's allowed double-digit hits. 2 of them have come in his last 2 starts.
The Rockies were a bad bet again. Listless performance. Swept in Milwaukee. Remember that one time a while back they were 3 games out of the wild card. Then they in 3 games in 4 days they had a lead in the 8th and the 9th inning and they blew it 3 times. And now again the issues they just won 2 out of 3 from the Cubs at home to win that series, but they can't get it together on the road lately.
No, it was 2 out of 3 against the Cubs and 2 out of 3 against the Nats on their last homestand.
Yes, thank you.
But the previous road trip, they got swept in Philly to close out that road trip. This is a team that spent a lot of time talking about playing better baseball on the road, playing better baseball over the second half of the season. We saw that for a while, but bad pitching, and in particular, bullpen meltdowns, can do that to a team. The Rockies now just 6-14 in their last 20 overall.
In a sports bit moment of silence, the scoreless streak, the appearance streak is over. Britton gave up a run in the 9th. His first run he's allowed since late April, although the Orioles hang on and win.
Oh, yeah, the Nats scored 5 in the 9th against that Baltimore bullpen, the last of which came versus Britton after a Daniel Murphy grand slam brought the first 4 home. But we got to do it, man. It's moment of silence time. 43 consecutive appearances without a run. Moment of silence. It's over. Orioles, of course, as you mentioned, still won. That's their 3rd in a row against the Nats. Then again, the Nats still have a 7-game lead in the NL East. They're not under pressure just yet.
Up next, rapid fire. 3 big games to get to in Big Game Breakdown and NFL news and notes in the deep dive on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
I don't know if anyone pays attention to these promos we do for our show, but I hope they are, because Mike Brenner, we're just flat out killing it in August. Both of us, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got anything to add to that?
There's nothing else to add.
There's nothing really to add. But we're going to do it again today, Thursday, August 25th, and I'll tell you what, a couple more picks I'm liking. What do you think, Mike Brenner?
Absolutely. Check out this card. There's about 5 spots that look like gold.
I'd actually recommend that Pauly and Teddy themselves watch our show today.
They probably do.
Here we go. Time for Big Game Breakdown. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com, NFL preseason week 3. This game's on NBC tonight. The Falcons take on Miami. But careful now, the game's not in Miami. The game's in Orlando, and we could see another Hall of Fame debacle here. They haven't played a game in this stadium, on this field, since 1997, NFL game, 1997, and they played a soccer game there last night. Dolphins are 2-43 the total. I don't know why the line was priced like Miami had home field advantage to begin with, Teddy.
I honestly don't think that there were certainly bettors that I talked to that didn't know that Miami wasn't the true home team for this ball game. The game being played at a neutral site that is not necessarily conducive to quality football. And let's not forget, we talk about all the goals of the preseason. What's the number one goal for every coach in the preseason? It doesn't matter if you're on a good team, a bad team, anything else you're trying to do. The number one goal is avoid injuries. And playing on this field, definitely something that I'm going to pay a lot of attention to in the hours before kickoff tonight, trying to assess what those field conditions are actually like, because from early reports, there are certainly some questions in that regard.
Right. So even though they lost and were blown out in Dallas, Tannehill played well in a case like what he saw out of his first team offense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, Pro Football Focus did a really nice job. They had a great article grading the best player in the NFL at each position last week, which shows, how serious these guys are at grading out personnel. And you know who the number one quarterback in football? Here's a quote. Ryan Tannehill, Miami Dolphins. Tannehill had a near perfect outing in his first preseason action, scoring a pair of touchdowns, completing a fantastic pass on a corner route, and not earning a single negative graded play against him versus the Cowboys. Finished 12 of 20 for 162 yards and 2 touchdowns, also had a pair of scrambles, and gained 16 yards running out of the backfield. So Tannehill, who was in line for extended playing time this evening, coming off a very good performance against Dallas last week.
So I guess so far it's the same story with the Falcons, where they made some changes, but again, it's the lack of takeaways on defense. Only 23 takeaways last year, and they were dead last in sack percentage at 3.3.
Yeah, and of course, A and B are very closely related. If you're putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks, if you're putting pressure on teams at the line of scrimmage, you're going to get sacks. when you get sacks and you're putting pressure on opposing teams, you're likely to get more than your fair share of takeaways. Atlanta hasn't had a pass rush, as you mentioned, dead last in sack percentage. Just 3.3% of dropbacks were able to get to the opposing quarterback, I should say. Here's a quote from defense coordinator Richard Smith. To do that, to get turnovers, you have to hunt like a dog to get them. You have to be conscious of it. We haven't been able to get that done, and that's been the case for Atlanta so far, as you mentioned. No takeaways here in the preseason is most assuredly a point of emphasis for the Falcons as they take the field tonight.
All right, game number 2, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Cowboys and the Seahawks on NFL Network. Seahawks.
Paul, let me jump in. Let me just jump in real quick because I did have one last point about Dolphins and Falcons.
Okay.
These two teams played Week 3 of the preseason last year, and it was Miami 13, Atlanta 9. Matt Ryan only threw 7 passes in that game compared to 28 from his backup, T.Y. Yates. Now, I haven't seen any indication that Quinn has a similar game plan this year, and this year it's Matt Schaub instead of Yates. And this year, Atlanta has a healthy Julio Jones, who they did not have in the preseason last year. But it's definitely worth noting for the purpose of this ball game that the Falcons' Week 3 last year was not a true regular season walkthrough.
Yeah, T.J. Yates, the quarterback there. Yep.
T.Y.
T.Y. Hilton, T.J. Yates.
Yeah.
Cowboys, Seahawks, as I mentioned, NFL Network, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Seahawks 544 the total. When Wilson gets down on a knee to call a play, he's telling the huddle what they're going to do here and what they're going to run, but he's also praying. I mean, that offensive line is horrible right now and beat up.
It really is. And we've seen it very clearly in the first 2 preseason games for Seattle. The first-string offense hasn't been able to do a whole lot. And the primary reason for those initial failures for that Seahawks first-string offense has been the inability to protect Russell Wilson or to generate any kind of holes for the running games. The offensive line coach, Tom Cable, quote, this is a quote from earlier in the week. What day is the first game? September 11th? We have a lot of work to do, and there's a ton of adjustments being made on that Seahawks offensive line. Most notably, Jamarcus Webb is expected to make his Seahawks game debut this week at right tackle. Someone who Seattle signed as a free agent from Oakland this past spring, who was expected to be a starter for this team.
Well, no doubt the big story of the preseason so far is Dak Prescott. He's accounted for 6 touchdowns and only has 5 incomplete passes. He's been so good that it looks like the Cowboys are just going to say he's the number 2. He's legit. No need to make a trade.
And look, here's your GM, Jerry Jones, talking about, does the fact that Prescott's looked good in 2 preseason games mean that you no longer need an experienced veteran? And Jones, his answer is real simple. Yes, unquestionably. What's happening to us is we're able to give these snaps to Prescott, principally because of Romo and where we are with him and his experience. We're able to give these preseason snaps to Dak, and in doing so, we're going to have him maybe as many snaps during this preseason experience, evaluation, all those kind of things, as Romo got in his entire career before he became a starter. And you can't buy that. And I agree with Jones in the one sense that these are valuable snaps for Dak Prescott. And Prescott got me last week. He did. But that being said, there is a real difference between the Rams backups having communication problems in week 1 and Miami kind of playing a little bit of passionless defense in week 2. Now they're traveling to Seattle with the sea bags off a bad loss. And Seattle's backups on defense in the second half, well, they've allowed a grand total of 3 points in 2 games. Let's not forget the Vikings game-winning touchdown last week came on a pick 6.
Yep. McFadden's out, Des Bryant out, and with McFadden out, expect a lot of carries for Ezekiel Elliott. LiveOddsSportsBookReview.com. 1 game MLB. Huge series starts tonight in Texas. Cleveland takes on, the Indians take on the Rangers. It's Tomlin against Hamels. Rangers $1.59 the total. Best record in the American League on the line. And Hamels has no problem pitching in those big games. And they'll no doubt he'll step up, and the Rangers know they'll get a big effort out of him.
Well, you talk about a team getting their money's worth out of a veteran starter. I mean, Texas paid a lot for Hamels in terms of prospects and in terms of actual cash out of their pocket. But look at this. 37 regular season starts with the Rangers. They're 28-9 in those games. His personal numbers, 20-5 with a 3.11 ERA. That is getting the job done. And look, the Rangers bullpen has all kinds of issues over the back half of the campaign. This team has needed him to step up and eat innings with all the other injuries in the rotation. How about this? 7 starts since the All-Star break. He's averaged 7 innings per start. He's eating those innings, and he's done all that with an ERA of $1.85.
Well, as I said yesterday on the show, with the exception of Kluber, I don't trust anybody in this Cleveland rotation. Then you got Tomlin, who's running on fumes. Look at this graphic. Pre-August 1st, 11-3 with a 3.43. In August, 0-4 with an ERA of 10. 4 August starts, allowed 33 hits and 7 home runs. He's only finished the 5th inning 1 time, and they just got blown out in back-to-back games against the A's.
Yeah, you sure don't want cold bats heading into Texas to face a guy like Cole Hamels. We'll get back to this game when it comes to play of the daytime at the end of the show.
Yep, up next, deep dive. We'll get to all the news and notes in the NFL and the Chargers playing hardball on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com. Hey guys, it's that time of year again, football season. And with that, let's hear from everyone's favorite prick.
If you like Captain American football, there's 50,000 dead presidents on the line in this year's Beat the Prick contest. In case you ain't fucking guessed, I'm the prick. Click on the link below for more info. I'm ready to stomp some ass. This is going to be my best performance yet. So join today. It's free, you fucking squares.
Back on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy, deep dive, NFL. Chip Kelly said Kaepernick's going to play. He didn't tip his hand about who's going to start, although it's been a ton of San Francisco money here as the Packers were favored. Now the Niners are favored with the Kaepernick news, Teddy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this line's moved as much as 4 points in some spots. We saw Green Bay opening in the 1-2 range. Now it's San Fran in the -1 to -2 range. And again, we've talked about it multiple times here on SportsBit. Big difference in the preseason between -1 and -2. 1s and 2s are both key numbers at this time of the year. Here's a quote from Chip Kelly talking about Kaepernick. He's not saying specifically what playing time he's getting, but we'll see. He's on track. We're excited and we're hopeful he'll be ready to go. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse. We have a system. When we get to Friday, we'll know exactly from head athletic trainer Jeff Ferguson who's up and who's down. If he's up, he is going to play. Kelly continued. He's been sharp with all things mentally. There's always a little, when you take some time off from the physical, there may be a ball that was behind from a timing standpoint, but there's no indecision where he doesn't know where he's going. Let me ask you this, Pauly. Any chance that Colin Kaepernick is the 49ers starting quarterback on opening day?
No chance. No. They don't want him there, and they tried to trade him. They couldn't work it out with Denver. No chance he's the starter.
I disagree. I think he's still alive to win that job simply because
come on.
He's probably the best quarterback on the roster.
No, I don't know. He's not. No, he's not.
And
not right now. He hasn't played in a game either.
Who's a better fit to run Chip Kelly's offense than Colin Kaepernick on that team?
Kaepernick 4 years ago or 3 years ago, or the guy who played last year?
The guy who played last year.
He's got a dead arm.
Hopeless. I think he's live to win that job. I think San Fran is doing what they can to keep him live to win that job. Let's just put it that way.
All right. Why they abandoned the pistol years ago, I'll never understand either. To the Bears, they already lost their starting center for the season. 19 guys are injured, 2 are limited, and 2 more guys are resting, and 1's out for personal reasons. What's going on here in Chicago?
Yeah, they're without 24 players on their 90-man roster. And as you mentioned, already without their projected starting center, season-ending injury. Now with a right guard, Kyle Long is dealing with a labrum issue. We don't know yet how long he's going to be out. John Fox was evasive when asked if he would be ready for the opener. Quote, "It doesn't really matter what I think. There are medical people involved, and when he's cleared, he'll play." But, and of course, the old unnamed sources, one said that no chance he'll be back for the regular season. The other one said he's confident he'll be back for the start of the regular season. The bottom line right now for Chicago is this team is decimated with injuries in training camp, and teams that are decimated with injury in training camp are not what I would consider to be bet-on squads when it comes to August games.
Some injuries in Baltimore. What do you think there?
Well, yeah. I mean, we got, I'll call it cluster injuries in the secondary. Three cornerbacks, Kyle Arrington, Maurice Kennedy, and Gerard Powers all out. Safeties, Matt Elam and Kendrick Lewis are all out. None of these guys, if not all, most of these guys, if not all of them, are unlikely to play against the Lions, and yet Baltimore's been taking the money, at least in early betting action.
And this was a big story when you woke up on the West Coast yesterday. The Chargers pull their offer to Joey Bosa, third overall pick. They're trying to get a new stadium. This doesn't help. They are a cheap organization. It's a signing bonus. Give him his money. And they knew in September. They knew in September they were taking this guy. They did it with Rivers. They did it with Merriman. They did it with LT. They did it with Quentin Jammer. This is a cheap organization.
It's a different management team now than it was from those guys. Bosa's the idiot here, not the Chargers. Okay, Bosa's asking for something that San Diego hasn't done before, that 29 of the 31 players who have signed didn't get what he got. The player didn't get what he asked for. The player directly ahead of him in the draft, Carson Wentz, didn't get what he asked for. The player directly behind him in the draft didn't get what Bosa's asked for. It's a bad situation right now. This certainly isn't going to help San Diego in any way, shape, or form. As you mentioned, they're trying to get a new stadium. This is kind of a disaster, and they need his pass rush. Make no mistake about it. When you have a rookie that's not in camp by week 3, he's not going to be a productive rookie. I don't blame San Diego for taking the offer off the table, but I got a feeling, Pauly, this situation might get ugly. It's already ugly. It might even get uglier before it gets better.
Too late for that. Yeah, the Bills, one step forward, two steps back. They get Watkins back, and Manny Lawson looks like he could go against the Redskins, but they lose some other guys.
Oh, yeah, 3 key players at practice yesterday. Your starting right tackle, Jordan Mills, got hurt. Their top slot cornerback, Nickel Roby, got hurt. And the number 3 wide receiver, Marquise Goodwin, got a concussion. We have another team, maybe not as bad as the Bears. And again, when you have the non-high profile injury, when it's not Des Bryant sitting out, he doesn't cover it. Bills are banged up, really banged up right now. And the thought process from a couple of sources in Buffalo is saying all they care about this week is to get through Friday's game without any more injuries.
All right, and this is something to watch. Good news with the Vikings. Teddy Bridgewater back throwing at practice. He has the sore shoulder. They open up U.S. Bank Stadium Sunday against San Diego.
Did you hear the story about U.S. Bank Stadium? They're saying it's going to be louder than the Metrodome. Way louder than the Metrodome. And I believe the Metrodome was the loudest stadium in the NFL at one point, wasn't it?
Well, when they were good, yeah.
This is all of a sudden, it's worth noting that you may want to start adjusting Minnesota to that home field edge. We've seen some teams get worse when it comes to a home field edge of the new stadium. Let's say the 49ers, for example, where all the fans were priced out and all the corporate bigwigs were priced in to the new stadium. That's not going to be the case at U.S. Bank Stadium in Minnesota. That's going to be a loud and impressive venue. Can't wait to see it.
Yes, all right. Couple football games. Got some good baseball series and matchups tonight. Tomorrow, back to the NFL and a weekend preview. We'll go over a lot of stuff rapid fire coming up. Money time, play of the day. Where are we going? Well, you mentioned we're going back to Texas.
Yeah, this isn't a day where I particularly am attracted to the preseason NFL card. So, not at the current numbers, certainly. So let's stick with MLB, and let's bet some very reasonable chalk tonight. That is game number 916, the Texas Rangers. You still find them at minus 150. This number can only rise, so there is some urgency here. I look for Texas to take care of business with Cole Hamels on the hill. Take the Rangers, minus $1.50. That's our play of the day.
All right, very good. Looks like a winner to me. We'll be back tomorrow. Tell your friends. Football season's here. Let's get the views up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.